Countries around the world are condemning North Korea's latest missile launch. State media there confirmed the weapons were a new type of tactical guided projectile. U.S. President Joe Biden said in a news conference the ballistic missile launch violated a UN Security Council resolution.
We're consulting with our allies and partners, and there will be responses if they choose to escalate. We will respond accordingly.
North Korea's Rodon Shinmun newspaper said the weapons, capable of carrying a 2.5-ton warhead, hit a target 600 kilometers east of the Korean peninsula. That conflicts with Japan's account, which estimates it flew 450 kilometers. If the North statement is correct, all of South Korea falls within the weapon's range. Now, Japan's prime minister blasted North Korea in the Diet and said he would follow up with Biden when he meets with the leader next month.
The launch threatens the peace and security of our country. More than ever, we need to step up vigilance and surveillance. It cannot be tolerated.
The Biden administration is in the final stages of reviewing its North Korea policy, now considered a top foreign policy issue. Military analysis suggests there's reason to be concerned.
I think that's the same short-range ballistic missile that was displayed at a military parade in January. I guess it's an upgraded North Korean version of the Russian-made Iskander.
The Russia-developed missile, called Iskander, is designed to fly at low altitudes and takes irregular flight patterns, making it tough to intercept. Koizumi also took note of the size of the warhead.
For a ballistic missile of this size, a warhead of 2.5 tons is enormous. I think it's highly possible this is designed for loading a nuclear warhead.
The experts also warned Pyongyang could launch missiles more frequently. The Japanese owner of a container ship that ran aground in the Suez Canal says it intends to try refloating the vessel on Saturday at high tide.
Our top priority is to resolve the blockage of the canal. We want to investigate the cause of the accident later.
Shoei Kisen said 10 tugboats are trying to pull the 400-meter-long Ever Given out of the mud. The firm said workers are trying to remove mud from areas near the bow, but difficulties have hampered both efforts. The company also said workers have started using machinery that can remove pulverized rocks. Shoei Kisen added it's received no reports of any malfunctions on the ship. The company believes a wind gust in a sandstorm pushed the ship off course while it was navigating the canal. The Ever Given has been blocking the canal since it got stuck there Tuesday on its way to the Mediterranean. Turning now to Myanmar, where the military is stepping up its crackdown while preparing for this weekend's Armed Forces Day. Despite pressure from the authorities, protesters continue to rally against the coup. People took to the streets on Friday in the largest city of Yangon to demand an end to the dictatorship ahead of Saturday's major military parade in the capital, Naypyidaw. A local human rights group says 320 people have been killed since the February 1st coup, including 11 on Thursday. Protesters are calling for nationwide demonstrations on Saturday. The foreign ministers of Indonesia and Singapore met Thursday in Jakarta. They shared their concerns over the situation in Myanmar.
We also share our position to call on Myanmar military to stop the use of force and prevent further casualties. We also urge Myanmar to start dialogue to put democracy, peace and stability back on track.
The U.S. Treasury Department has slapped sanctions on Myanmar's two conglomerates, which it says are owned or controlled by the military. The sanctions include a freeze on their properties in the U.S. and a ban on U.S. citizens and U.S.-owned firms from doing business with them. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken described the sanctions as Washington's most significant action to date against the junta. Blinken also offered condolences to families and friends of the crackdown victims. He mentioned the 7-year-old girl who was shot and killed by security forces in her home in Mandalay on Tuesday, calling such actions abhorrent and brutal. Officials here in Japan reported more than 2,000 coronavirus cases across the nation on Friday, reaching a level not seen in a month and a half. In rural areas, some worry the surge could bring communities to the point of disaster. The northern prefecture of Yamagata went from reporting no cases at all in the first week of March to recording its second highest daily count of 34 cases on Friday. Its capital city declared its own state of emergency on Monday, 4 days after neighboring Miyagi Prefecture. Their capital cities are separated by just an hour's drive. The head of the Yamagata Medical Association says that means their situations are linked.
Here in Yamagata, we don't have medical resources like they have in big cities. We already had to postpone regular hospital visits and surgeries. Yamagata is on the brink of a crisis.
Infections are also spreading in urban areas. Osaka reported 300 new cases for the first time in 2 months. The Western Prefecture has decided to extend its request for bars and restaurants in Osaka City to close by 9 p.m. until April 21st. It's also expanding the request to the entire prefecture. Now, the uptick comes as Japan is planning the next phase of its vaccine rollout and examining early data. The health ministry says 47 cases of a severe allergic reaction called anaphylaxis were reported in people who received the Pfizer-BioNTech vaccine. That equates to 81 cases per million, which is a rate that far outstrips those reported in the United States and UK. But officials caution differing reporting standards make it hard to compare the numbers. Well, the professional baseball season here in Japan kicked off on Friday. Some coronavirus restrictions have been relaxed from last year, but the pandemic continues to have a major impact on the sport. Teams will return to a normal schedule this year. Last season, the start was delayed by about 3 months, and the number of games was reduced. There'll still be special rules, including no extra innings. The number of spectators will also remain restricted. They'll be capped at 10,000 for stadiums in several prefectures, including Tokyo and Osaka. Many venues have begun taking measures to prevent infection. In this stadium in Tokyo, an automatic gate for electronic tickets has been set up at the entrance in order to reduce contact. Fans are also required to wear masks and refrain from cheering loudly.
We should follow the rules of the stadium and other measures to enjoy the games.
It's not safe to shout, so I use my cheering goods to support the team.
All 10 non-Japanese players for the Yokohama DNA BayStars were unable to make it for the opening of the season due to entry restrictions. League officials plan to suspend some games this summer when the Tokyo Olympics are scheduled to be held. An international framework led by the World Health Organization to distribute COVID-19 vaccines worldwide expects delays in deliveries of the AstraZeneca vaccine made in India. A surge in domestic demand is causing the delay. Officials of the COVAX facility say deliveries from the Serum Institute of India will be delayed this month and the next. COVAX aims to provide more than 337 million doses to 145 countries and regions by the end of June. The major pharmaceutical firm has a contract to supply more than 70% of the total. India reported more than 59,000 new cases on Friday, the highest daily rise in 5 months. Infections there have resurged since late last month. India's health minister said on Friday the nationwide vaccination campaign will be widened to include more people. The government had planned to start vaccinating everyone over 45 from April 1st. The French government is calling out anti-Asian racism that's growing amid the pandemic. Officials plan to draw up proposals to try to stop the discrimination. They say there's been an unprecedented increase in discrimination against people of Asian descent. The government says it'll propose preventive measures and solicit feedback on the moves in April. A group of ethnic Chinese in Paris says posts on social media began calling for racist attacks around October last year when the second lockdown took effect. For 3 weeks, the group says it received daily complaints about assaults and slurs. Those complaints are now more sporadic but continue to come in.
They say, go back to your country. Your race has spread the virus. They're mainly targeting residents of Chinese descent, but all Asians are facing attacks.
The group says any government measures may not be enough, but they acknowledged officials are taking action to stand up against racism. People in the U.S. Deep South are bracing for more severe weather this weekend after tornadoes touched down in Alabama Thursday. Our meteorologist John.
All the major developments, and we're going to start with the latest coronavirus case numbers from Johns Hopkins University. More than 125.5 million diagnosed COVID-19 cases around the globe, with the death toll here in the United States more than 546,000. As the number of Americans now fully vaccinated against the virus is growing as well, the CDC reporting that figure has now surpassed 47.4 million Americans.
And as we said, Dr. Ashton has the day off, but hey, look at what we got here. ABC News contributor and emergency medicine physician, Dr. Darian Sutton. Dr. Sutton, good to see you, my man, as always. So we've been waiting on data to see how this vaccine is playing out in the real world, how it's helping us out. So what are the numbers telling us about what the vaccine is doing for us?
Well, TJ, good to see you as well. There's some promising information coming out of Texas. At the University of Texas Southwestern Medical Center, they conducted a pilot program where they vaccinated frontline workers starting in December of 2020. And that start date is important because that's before this region saw their largest surge in cases of COVID-19 that caused a strain on many of the healthcare systems within Texas. Out of the over 8,000 frontline workers who were fully vaccinated, less than 1% tested positive for COVID-19. More specifically, there were only 4 documented cases. So these results are incredibly promising and reassuring, but of course we have to be patient, especially since we're seeing across the United States, we're seeing subtle increases in the rates of COVID-19. So we have to remain cautious as we patiently wait for more and more people to get vaccinated.
Yeah, cautiously optimistic. We will take that heading into the weekend. Dr. Sutton, thank you very much. We appreciate it.
In Mexico, shelters near the U.S. border are filling up with Central American migrants blocked from entering the United States. An advisor to Egypt's president says earth-moving operations are continuing to help free a container ship blocking the Suez Canal. Ethiopia's prime minister says Eritrea has agreed to withdraw its troops out of the Ethiopian border. The troops are accused of committing violence against civilians in Ethiopia's Tigray area. And South Korea's defense minister holds talks with India's top defense official in an effort to improve ties.
Authorities in Berlin have declared the whole of France a high-risk area for coronavirus infections. All travellers from France will have to present a negative test result and quarantine upon arrival in Germany. In a phone call, US President Joe Biden and the British Prime Minister Boris Johnson expressed concern over what they call China's retaliatory actions after 9 UK citizens who campaigned against human rights abuses were sanctioned by Beijing. At least 32 people have been killed and more than 100 injured in a train crash in southern Egypt. The country has suffered frequent rail accidents, due in part to poor maintenance and a lack of investment. A new attempt to refloat the cargo ship, which is blocking the Suez Canal, has failed. According to the company brought in to help, the Ever Given has now jammed billions of dollars worth of trade.